Right, so here we're going to demonstrate the proper setup for how we take a melting point in the lab. In order to do that, we have our melting point device here. We will also need a watch glass, a spatula, and these melting point capillaries. We want to be careful with the ones that we use. The melting point capillaries are very, very specific. You can see that at this end they're open and they're sealed at the other end. We do have other capillaries in the lab that are open at both ends. We'll learn about using those when we get to thin layer chromatography. Now, for this video, I'm just going to use some benzoic acid. And so, what I'm going to do is take a small amount of benzoic acid and place it onto a watch glass. Now, if I try to get this into the melting point capillary, you can see based on the size of those pieces, it's going to be fairly difficult. So the next thing that I'm going to do is to take my spatula and try and grind that up a little bit. And the smaller I can get it, the more easily I'm going to be able to get it into the melting point capillary. Now, I've got way more here on this dish than what I actually need. We just need a very, very small amount. Basically, if you can see it, it's more than enough to get a melting point. And so over at this side, I've gotten enough of it into smaller pieces that I can now take the open end of my melting point capillary and just force some of that up in there. And now you can see I don't have a lot in there, but that's enough. As you're getting more experienced with this, as this is still new to you, you may want a little bit more in there because it'll be easier to see. Now, I want it down at the closed end, and in order to do that, I'm going to start by just tapping this with the closed end down. And you can see that some of it has gone to the bottom, but the majority of it is still up at the top. So that's where this glass tube comes into play. I'm going to take this glass tube and put it on my lab bench, and I'm going to drop my capillary with the closed end down. And I'm going to do that a couple of times. And what that's done for us is now we have all the material at the bottom. So now I'm ready to set up my melting point. And I start by turning it on. And our main switch is located here in the back. And then I need to set two things. I need to set the fast stage and the slow stage. So benzoic acid, we can look on the bottle, has a melting point of 121 to 125 degrees Celsius. So I'm going to set my fast stage a little bit below that. In this case, the benzoic acid is pure. You can see I've taken it straight out of the bottle. And so I know there's not going to be any significant decrease. So I'm going to set it about 15 degrees below that, about 105. That way, once we start this, the melt temp will very rapidly increase to that fast temperature. I'm going to then set the slow stage, and you can actually see it's already there. So in order to set either of these, I hold the fast stage down and press the up and down arrows. And same thing with the slow. I press the slow, and I can use the up and down arrows. The slow stage is giving me a number of degrees it's going to increase per minute. So about 3 degrees per minute usually works well. Now I need to put my sample in, and in order to do that, you can see on the side here, there are these 2 holes. And so my capillary will go through there. And if I look down in through here, I can now see my sample magnified. I will attempt to show you what that looks like on here, although I'm not sure it's going to come out very well. Yeah, so that's unfortunately not very visible on here. But you can see that our sample is sticking out and it's inside. And the part where the solid was sitting is what we should be able to see through our magnifying glass. At this point, I'm just going to press start. And from here, it's going to start to heat up. It's going to do it relatively quickly during that fast stage. And I'm going to periodically keep an eye on it. But right now I know there's no real risk of it melting. What's going to happen, you can see it's at about 30 degrees right now. When we get up to that number that I set for the fast stage, approximately 105 degrees Celsius, the melt temp is going to beep. It's going to let us know we've reached that point. And at that point, we can hit the start button again to go to the slow stage. When we go to the slow stage, it will heat up much slower, and that's the point where we will want to keep a very careful eye on it. For any melting point we take, remember, there are always 2 numbers that we should record. We should be recording the temperature where we first see any drops of liquid, and then we should record the temperature where all of our sample is completely melted.